The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor buzzed like dying insects. Elena Rivera sat on a hard plastic chair, her hands trembling in her lap, watching the clock on the wall tick toward midnight. Through the window of room 304, she could see her mother's chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. Each breath sounded like it might be the last. "Miss Rivera?" The doctor's voice cut through her thoughts. He was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes that had delivered too much bad news. "Can we speak privately?" Elena stood, her legs unsteady. She followed him down the hallway to a small consultation room that smelled like disinfectant and despair. The doctor gestured to a chair, but Elena remained standing. She needed to be ready to run, to fight, to do something other than sit and accept whatever came next. "Your mother's cancer has progressed," the doctor said, his voice gentle but firm. "The chemotherapy isn't working. Her body is shutting down." Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. There has to be something else. Another treatment. Another option. The doctor hesitated, then pulled out his tablet. "There is one possibility. An experimental treatment program at Johns Hopkins. It's shown promising results in cases like your mother's. But I need to be honest with you, Miss Rivera. The treatment costs $250,000, and insurance won't cover it because it's experimental." The number hit Elena like a physical blow. $250,000. She had $847 in her bank account. Her credit cards were maxed out from the last 6 months of medical bills. She'd already sold her car, her laptop, everything of value she owned. "How long?" Elena whispered. "How long does she have without it?" 2 months. Maybe 3. Elena walked back to her mother's room and stood in the doorway. Rose Rivera had been a force of nature once. A kindergarten teacher who baked cookies for her students and sang in the church choir. The woman in that hospital bed looked nothing like the mother who had raised Elena alone after her father left, who had worked 2 jobs to send her to college, who had never once complained about how hard life was. Elena pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window. She'd tried everything. She'd started a crowdfunding campaign that raised $3,000. She'd applied for grants and financial assistance programs. She'd begged the hospital for payment plans. Nothing was enough. Nothing would ever be enough. She was going to watch her mother die. Elena walked to the hospital chapel, a small room with 6 pews and a simple wooden cross on the wall. She sat in the back row and tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come. What was the point? God wasn't listening. God had never listened. Elena Rivera? She looked up to find a man standing in the chapel doorway. He was in his 50s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Elena's rent. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, and he carried a leather briefcase. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Elena asked, wiping her eyes quickly. "No, but I've been looking for you. My name is Thomas Bradford. I'm an attorney." He walked closer, his expensive shoes clicking on the tile floor. "I represent a client who has a proposal for you. One that could solve your financial problems." Elena's first instinct was to walk away. This sounded like a scam, like one of those too-good-to-be-true offers that ended with someone stealing your identity. But something in the man's eyes stopped her. He looked sincere. Tired but sincere. "What kind of proposal?" Elena asked carefully. "My client is looking for a gestational surrogate. Someone healthy, responsible, and in need of significant financial compensation. The payment would be $300,000. Elena stared at him. The number seemed impossible. Surrogacy. She'd never considered it, never even thought about it. The idea of carrying a baby for someone else felt strange, complicated. But $300,000 would save her mother's life. It would pay for the treatment, the hospital bills, everything. "Why me?" Elena asked. "How did you even find me?" "My client has been searching for the right person for months. Someone who understands what it means to fight for family. Your crowdfunding campaign came to our attention. We did our research. You're 28 years old, healthy, no genetic issues. You've never been pregnant before, which is actually ideal for this situation. And you need money desperately. That makes you motivated to see this through." Elena's mind raced. This was crazy. This was insane. But her mother was dying in a room down the hall, and this stranger was offering her a way to save Rose's life. "Tell me more," Elena said. Thomas sat down in the pew beside her. "My client's wife passed away 2 years ago. Before she died, they had gone through IVF and created several embryos. Only one remains. The client wants to honor his late wife's wish to have a child. But he needs someone to carry the baby. Someone he can trust." "What about his wife's family? Don't they want to be involved?" Thomas's expression darkened. "His mother-in-law is contesting this. She wants the embryo destroyed. She believes it's unnatural to bring a child into the world without its mother. That's why time is important. My client needs to move forward quickly before the courts can intervene. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This situation was more complicated than she'd thought. But $300,000. That number kept echoing in her head. That was her mother's life. If I agree to this, what happens? Elena asked. You'll meet with my client tomorrow. If you both agree to move forward, you'll sign a contract. The embryo transfer will happen within 2 weeks. You'll receive $50,000 upfront for medical expenses and your mother's treatment. The remaining $250,000 will be paid in installments throughout the pregnancy, with a final payment upon successful delivery. Elena thought about her mother's labored breathing, the way her skin had turned gray, the hopelessness in the doctor's eyes. She thought about Rose dying in that hospital bed while Elena stood by helpless. I'll meet with your client, Elena said. Thomas nodded and pulled a business card from his briefcase. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. This is the address. Come alone. After he left, Elena sat in the empty chapel for a long time. She was about to change her life in ways she couldn't begin to understand. But if it saved her mother, it would be worth it. It had to be worth it. Have you ever faced an impossible choice between saving someone you love and protecting yourself? What would you have done in Elena's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what happens next in Elena's journey. The address Thomas Bradford had given Elena led to a gated estate in the hills outside the city. The guard at the entrance checked her ID and waved her through. As she drove up the winding driveway in her borrowed car, Elena's heart hammered in her chest. The house was modern, all glass and steel, with a view that stretched for miles. It was the kind of place Elena had only seen in magazines. She parked near the front entrance and sat for a moment, gathering her courage. A woman in her 60s answered the door when Elena knocked. She had kind eyes and wore a blue cardigan over a simple dress. You must be Elena. I'm Mrs. Patterson, the housekeeper. Please come in. Mr. Mitchell is expecting you. Elena followed her through a foyer with marble floors and into a living room that faced floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley below. Everything was clean and modern but somehow cold. Like a showroom instead of a home. Elena Rivera? She turned to find a man standing in the doorway. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 35, with dark hair and light brown eyes that carried a deep sadness. He wore jeans and a green button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept well in a very long time. I'm Dominic Mitchell, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for coming. Elena shook his hand. His grip was warm and steady. Your lawyer said you have a proposal. I do. Please sit down. Can Mrs. Patterson get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be good, Elena said. Her mouth was dry, her palms sweating despite the cool air conditioning. They sat on opposite couches, a glass coffee table between them. Mrs. Patterson brought water in crystal glasses and then quietly disappeared. Dominic leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Elena. This situation is complicated. 2 years ago, my wife Rebecca and I started IVF. We wanted a family more than anything. We created 5 embryos. Before we could do the transfer, Rebecca was in a car accident. She died 3 days later. Elena's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. Dominic nodded, his jaw working. After she died, I couldn't think about the embryos. They stayed frozen at the clinic. Then, about 6 months ago, Rebecca's mother, Margaret Caldwell, found out about them. She demanded they be destroyed. She said it was wrong to bring a child into the world without its mother. We've been fighting in court ever since. Why does she want them destroyed? Elena asked. Aren't they her grandchildren? Margaret loved Rebecca more than anything. But she's old-fashioned. She thinks this is playing God. She thinks I'm trying to replace Rebecca. Dominic stood and walked to the windows, his back to Elena. 4 of the 5 embryos didn't survive the thawing process. There's only 1 left. And if I don't move forward soon, the court might rule in Margaret's favor. Elena understood now why Thomas had said time was important. This wasn't just about having a baby. This was about preserving the last piece of his wife. Where do I fit into this? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Dominic turned to face her. I need a surrogate. Someone who will carry this baby and help me honor Rebecca's wish to have a family. Thomas told me about your situation. Your mother. I know you need money for her treatment. Elena bristled. So you think I'll do this because I'm desperate? No, Dominic said quickly. I think you'll do this because you understand what it means to fight for the people you love. I've read about your crowdfunding campaign, about how you've tried everything to save your mother. You're a fighter, Elena. That's what I need. Someone who won't give up. Elena looked down at her hands. He wasn't wrong. She was desperate. But hearing him say it out loud made her feel small, powerless. Thomas mentioned $300,000, Elena said. Is that really what you're offering? Yes. $50,000 up front when you sign the contract. That money is yours immediately, no matter what happens with the pregnancy. Another $100,000 at the end of the first trimester. $100,000 at the end of the second trimester. And $50,000 upon successful delivery. All medical expenses covered. You'll live here in the guest house during the pregnancy so I can ensure you receive the best care possible. Elena's mind reeled. That money would save her mother. It would pay for the experimental treatment, the hospital bills, everything. She could stop drowning in debt. Her mother could live. But carrying a baby for 9 months? Living here with a stranger? Giving birth to a child that would belong to someone else? What happens after the baby is born? Elena asked. You'll have no legal rights or responsibilities. This is a gestational surrogacy. The baby will be biologically mine and Rebecca's. You'll be the surrogate, nothing more. The contract will make all of this very clear. And your mother-in-law? What if she causes problems? Dominic's expression hardened. If you agree to this, I'll have my lawyers file the paperwork immediately. Once you're pregnant, it will be much harder for Margaret to fight this. The courts won't terminate a healthy pregnancy. Elena stood and walked to the windows. The view was breathtaking. Below, she could see the city where her mother lay in a hospital bed, waiting for a miracle. This was the miracle. Strange, complicated, but a miracle nonetheless. I need to think about this, Elena said. Of course. Take your time. Dominic handed her a folder. This is the contract. Read it carefully. Talk to a lawyer if you want. But Elena, I need an answer soon. Every day that passes is another day Margaret's lawyers are working to destroy that embryo. Elena took the folder. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why is this so important to you? I mean, you could adopt. You could meet someone new someday and have children naturally. Why fight so hard for this? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Because Rebecca wanted this. We made these embryos together. We talked about names, about nursery colors, about what kind of parents we wanted to be. When she died, all of those dreams died with her. This embryo is the last piece of that dream. The last piece of her. I can't let it go. I won't. Elena understood. She understood completely. If someone tried to take away her last chance to save her mother, she'd fight with everything she had too. I'll read the contract tonight, Elena said. I'll give you my answer tomorrow. That night, Elena sat in her mother's hospital room reading the contract by the light of the monitors. Rose was sleeping, her breathing easier now with the morphine regulating her pain. Elena read every word, every clause, every condition. The contract was straightforward. She would carry Dominic's baby. She would receive excellent medical care. She would be compensated generously. And at the end she would walk away. But as Elena sat there watching her mother sleep, she realized something. She wasn't just agreeing to carry a baby. She was agreeing to carry someone's hope. Someone's last connection to the person they loved most in the world. The next morning, Elena called Thomas Bradford. I'll do it, she said. When do we start? 2 weeks later, Elena lay on an examination table in the fertility clinic, staring at the ceiling tiles while Dr. Susan Park prepared for the embryo transfer. Dominic sat in a chair near the door, his hands gripping his knees so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Are you ready, Elena? Dr. Park asked, her voice gentle. Elena nodded. The $50,000 had already been deposited in her account that morning. The experimental treatment center at Johns Hopkins had confirmed that her mother's treatment would begin in 3 days. This was happening. This was real. Dr. Park worked quickly and efficiently. The procedure itself took less than 10 minutes. Elena felt a brief cramping sensation and then it was done. One tiny embryo, Rebecca and Dominic's last hope, was inside her now. We'll know in 2 weeks if the transfer was successful, Dr. Park said. Until then, Elena, I want you on bed rest for the next 48 hours. After that, light activity only. No stress, no heavy lifting, no anything that might compromise implantation. Elena dressed carefully and met Dominic in the waiting room. He looked pale, exhausted. Thank you, he said quietly. I know this isn't easy. We don't know if it worked yet, Elena reminded him. It will work. Dominic's voice held a certainty that Elena wished she felt. The next 2 weeks were the longest of Elena's life. She moved into the guest house on Dominic's property, a small but beautiful cottage with 1 bedroom, a full kitchen, and a living room with large windows overlooking a garden. Mrs. Patterson, the housekeeper, checked on her daily, bringing meals and making sure Elena had everything she needed. Elena's mother started her treatment at Johns Hopkins. The first round was brutal. Rose lost her hair, lost weight, spent days too weak to leave her bed. But the doctors were cautiously optimistic. The tumors were responding. On the day Elena was scheduled to take the pregnancy test, she woke before dawn, too nervous to sleep. She paced around the cottage, her hands shaking, her stomach in knots. At 7 a.m. Mrs. Patterson knocked on the door. "Mr. Mitchell asked me to drive you to the clinic," she said. "He's waiting there." The drive took 20 minutes. Elena stared out the window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Everything felt surreal, like she was moving through a dream. At the clinic, Dr. Park drew blood and sent it to the lab. "Results in an hour," she said. Elena and Dominic sat in the waiting room in silence. Other couples were there too, holding hands, whispering to each other. Elena felt suddenly, painfully alone. She wasn't part of a couple. She was a hired vessel. A means to an end. When Dr. Park finally called them back to her office, Elena's heart was beating so hard she thought it might break through her chest. "The test is positive," Dr. Park said, smiling. "Congratulations. You're pregnant." Dominic closed his eyes and let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for 2 years. Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks, though she wasn't sure if they were tears of relief or fear or something else entirely. "What happens now?" Elena asked. "We'll do an ultrasound in 3 weeks to confirm the heartbeat. Until then, continue with the prenatal vitamins I prescribed. Rest when you're tired." "Well." "And Elena, congratulations. You're giving this family an incredible gift." As they left the clinic, Dominic turned to Elena. "I want to thank you properly. Can we have dinner tonight? Just to celebrate?" Elena hesitated. The contract had been clear about maintaining professional boundaries. But he looked so hopeful, so grateful that she couldn't say no. "Okay," she said. "Dinner sounds nice." That evening, Mrs. Patterson set up a table on the patio between the main house and the guest cottage. The table was beautiful, covered in a white cloth with candles and fresh flowers. The food was simple but delicious: grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. Dominic poured sparkling water into crystal glasses. "To new beginnings," he said. "To new beginnings," Elena echoed. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the valley. Elena realized she knew almost nothing about this man whose baby she was carrying. "Tell me about yourself," she said. "Thomas said you work in tech?" Dominic nodded. "I started a software company when I was 25. We develop security systems for businesses. It's been successful, more successful than I ever imagined. But lately I've been thinking about stepping back. Maybe teaching. Maybe doing something that feels more meaningful." "What made you want to start a company?" Elena asked. "My father was a mechanic. He worked 60 hours a week his entire life and barely made enough to support us. I wanted something different. I wanted security. I wanted to know that if I had a family someday I could take care of them." He paused, his expression darkening. But all the money in the world couldn't save Rebecca. Elena reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "I'm sorry you lost her." Dominic looked at her hand on his, then back at her face. "Tell me about your mother. What's she like?" Elena smiled. "She's amazing. She was a kindergarten teacher for 30 years. Every kid in our neighborhood loved her. She's the strongest person I know. When my father left, she raised me alone. She worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. She never complained, never gave up. That's why I have to save her. She's fought for me my whole life. It's my turn to fight for her." "You're a good daughter," Dominic said. "I'm trying to be." They talked until the candles burned low and the stars came out overhead. Elena learned that Dominic had a younger brother who lived in Seattle, that his favorite food was pizza, that he played guitar but hadn't picked one up since Rebecca died. She told him about her dreams of becoming a teacher like her mother, about the small apartment she'd had to give up when the medical bills got too high, about her love of old movies and classic books. By the time Elena walked back to the guest cottage, she felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. Somewhere between the pregnancy test and the candlelit dinner, she and Dominic had become something else. Not quite friends but not strangers either. As she lay in bed that night, Elena placed her hand on her still flat stomach. There was a baby growing inside her. A tiny collection of cells that would become a person. Rebecca and Dominic's child. But for the next 9 months this baby would be part of Elena too. Connected to her blood, nourished by her body, listening to her heartbeat. The line between surrogate and mother suddenly felt very thin. Elena closed her eyes and tried not to think about how hard it would be to give this baby away when the time came. At 12 weeks pregnant, Elena stood in front of the mirror in her cottage bathroom, turning sideways to examine her profile. There was definitely a small bump now, barely visible beneath her loose blue dress, but unmistakably there. A life growing inside her. Rebecca's baby. Dominic's baby. Elena? Are you ready? Dominic's voice called from outside the cottage. Today was the first ultrasound, the one where they would see the baby and hear its heartbeat for the first time. Elena had been nervous all morning, barely able to eat breakfast. What if something was wrong? What if the baby hadn't developed properly? She grabbed her purse and met Dominic at his car. He looked nervous too, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too hard as they drove to the clinic. Dr. Park greeted them warmly and led them to the ultrasound room. Elena changed into a hospital gown and lay down on the examination table. Dominic took a seat in the chair beside her, close enough that Elena could feel his tension radiating like heat. "Let's take a look," Dr. Park said, squeezing gel onto Elena's stomach. The gel was cold, making Elena shiver. Dr. Park pressed the ultrasound wand against her skin and angled the monitor so they could both see. At first, Elena couldn't make sense of the grainy black and white image on the screen. Then Dr. Park pointed. "There's your baby." Elena's breath caught. The baby was tiny, maybe the size of a plum, but perfectly formed. She could see the head, the body, the little arms and legs moving. "And here," Dr. Park said, adjusting a dial, "is the heartbeat." The sound filled the room. A rapid, rhythmic whooshing that seemed impossibly loud and impossibly fragile at the same time. Elena felt tears stream down her face. She'd known intellectually that she was pregnant, but hearing that heartbeat made it real in a way nothing else had. She looked over at Dominic. He was crying too, silent tears rolling down his cheeks as he stared at the monitor. His hands gripped the arms of the chair so tightly Elena thought he might break them. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Park said. "Strong heartbeat, good development, no concerns. You're doing great, Elena." After the appointment, Dominic drove them to a small cafe overlooking the ocean. They ordered sandwiches and sat outside on the patio, watching sailboats drift across the blue water. "I heard her," Dominic said quietly. "Rebecca. When I heard that heartbeat, I swear I heard her voice saying thank you." Elena didn't know what to say to that. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. From that day forward, something shifted between them. Dominic started coming to the cottage for dinner several times a week. Mrs. Patterson would prepare the food and they'd eat together on the patio, talking about everything and nothing. Elena learned that Dominic had studied computer science at Stanford, that he loved hiking but hadn't gone in 2 years, that his mother had died when he was young and his father had remarried a woman Dominic didn't get along with. She learned that he played chess, that he collected vintage vinyl records, that he was terrible at cooking but loved baking bread. Dominic learned that Elena had wanted to be a teacher since she was 7 years old, that she volunteered at a literacy program before her mother got sick, that she missed her small apartment even though it had terrible plumbing and no air conditioning. He learned that she loved thunderstorms, that she was terrified of spiders, that she could quote entire scenes from her favorite movies. At 16 weeks, Elena felt the first flutter of movement. She was sitting in the garden reading a book when she felt it. Like a butterfly brushing against the inside of her stomach. She gasped and placed her hand over the spot. "Elena? What's wrong?" Dominic had been working on his laptop nearby. He jumped up, his face pale with concern. "Nothing's wrong," Elena said, laughing. "I felt the baby move. Just a little flutter." "Really?" Dominic knelt beside her chair. "Can I?" He hesitated, his hand hovering over her stomach. "Is it okay if I?" Elena took his hand and placed it on her stomach where she'd felt the movement. They waited, barely breathing. And then it happened again. A tiny flutter, barely perceptible, but there. Dominic's eyes widened. "I felt it. I actually felt it." He left his hand on her stomach and they sat like that for a long time, waiting for more movement. Elena looked down at his hand, so large against her small frame, and felt something warm spread through her chest. Something dangerous. She was falling for him. She knew it. Despite the contract, despite the boundaries, despite everything that made this complicated and wrong, she was falling for Dominic Mitchell. At 18 weeks they went shopping for baby clothes together. Dominic had insisted he wanted to start preparing, and somehow Elena ended up going with him. They walked through the baby store, looking at tiny onesies and impossibly small socks. "We don't know if it's a boy or girl yet," Elena reminded him when he picked up a pink dress. "I know. But look at this. It's so small." He held the dress up to the light. "How can a person be this small?" Elena laughed. "Your person is currently the size of a bell pepper." Dominic smiled at her, a real smile that reached his eyes. It was the first time Elena had seen him look truly happy since they'd met. They bought a few neutral items. Some yellow onesies, a soft green blanket, a stuffed elephant. At the checkout, the cashier smiled at them. "Your first baby?" "Yes," Dominic said automatically. Elena felt a pang in her chest. Not her baby. Rebecca's baby. But the woman kept smiling at them like they were a normal couple expecting their first child, and Elena didn't correct her. That night after dinner they sat on the patio as usual. The summer air was warm, carrying the scent of jasmine from the garden. Elena had started to show more now. Her stomach was rounded, unmistakably pregnant. "Can I ask you something personal?" Dominic said. "Sure. Do you think about what happens after? After the baby is born and you leave?" Elena had been thinking about it constantly. "Sometimes. I try not to. The contract is clear. I deliver the baby, I take my final payment, and I go back to my life." "What if?" Dominic hesitated. "What if you wanted to stay involved? Not as the mother, but as someone in the baby's life?" Elena's heart hammered in her chest. "The contract says I have no legal rights." "I know what the contract says. I'm asking what you want." Elena looked down at her hands. "I don't know. I haven't let myself think about that. It's too complicated. What would we even tell the baby? That I'm the surrogate? That I carried them but I'm not their mom? We'd tell them the truth. That you did something incredibly brave and selfless. That you gave them life. But what would I be to them?" Elena asked, her voice breaking. "What would I be to you?" The question hung in the air between them. Dominic opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. "I need to take this," he said, standing up. "It's my lawyer." Elena sat alone on the patio, her heart still racing from their conversation. She placed her hand on her stomach. The baby was moving more regularly now, little kicks and rolls that made her smile. She was in dangerous territory. She'd known that from the beginning, but now she was in too deep to turn back. She was living in Dominic's guest cottage. She was carrying his baby. She was having dinner with him nearly every night. She was starting to imagine a future that could never exist. Dominic came back 20 minutes later, his face grim. "That was about Margaret. She's escalating her case. Her lawyers are filing new motions." "What kind of motions?" "She wants a court order to prevent me from making any decisions about the baby without her approval. She's arguing that as Rebecca's mother, she has rights." He ran his hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Elena. I know this isn't what you signed up for." "It's okay," Elena said, even though it wasn't. "We'll figure it out." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, feeling the baby move, thinking about Margaret and the courts and the complicated web of legal issues she'd walked into. She thought about Dominic's question. What did she want? The truth was she wanted to stay. She wanted to watch this baby grow up. She wanted to keep having dinner on the patio with Dominic, talking until the stars came out. She wanted a life that wasn't defined by a contract. But wanting something didn't make it possible. And Elena had learned a long time ago that fairy tales didn't come true for people like her. Elena was in the garden, planting tomatoes in the raised beds Mrs. Patterson had helped her build, when the black Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She was 22 weeks pregnant now, her stomach round and prominent beneath her red maternity shirt. The baby was active, kicking and moving almost constantly. She stood up, wiping dirt from her hands, and watched as a woman emerged from the car. She was in her mid-60s, thin and elegant, wearing a cream-colored suit and pearls. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her expression was cold, calculating. "You must be the surrogate," the woman said, looking Elena up and down with barely concealed disgust. Elena's stomach clenched with something that felt like fear. "I'm Elena Rivera. Margaret Caldwell. Rebecca's mother." The woman walked closer, her heels clicking on the stone path. "I wanted to see for myself what kind of woman would do this." "Do what, exactly?" Elena asked, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Sell her womb to a grieving widower. Profit off my daughter's death." Margaret's voice was sharp as a knife. "Let me be very clear, Miss Rivera. That baby you're carrying is my grandchild. My blood. My daughter's legacy. Not yours. I know that, Elena said. I'm the surrogate. I understand my role. Do you? Margaret stepped even closer. Or have you started to imagine that you're more than that? That you're some kind of savior? That Dominic might actually care about you beyond your ability to carry his child? The words hit Elena like physical blows. Because Margaret was right. Elena had started to imagine exactly that. Over the past few months, as she and Dominic had grown closer, she'd started to hope. To dream. To believe that maybe this arrangement could become something more. Dominic and I have a legal contract, Elena said, her voice shaking now. Everything is proper and above board. A contract that I'm going to destroy in court. Margaret's smile was cold. I've been fighting Dominic for over a year now. He's managed to delay things, to find loopholes, to keep moving forward with this madness. But now that you're pregnant, now that there's a real child involved, the courts will have to take my concerns seriously. What concerns? Elena asked. Dominic is the biological father. He has every right to have this child. Dominic is emotionally unstable. He's making decisions based on grief, not logic. He's dragging my daughter's embryo into existence to assuage his own guilt for surviving when she didn't. And he's using you to do it. Margaret looked at Elena's stomach with something like revulsion. You're just the vessel, Miss Rivera? An incubator. And when this is over, when that baby is born, you'll be discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Before Elena could respond, Dominic's voice cut through the air. Get off my property, Margaret. He was walking across the lawn from the main house, his face dark with fury. Elena had never seen him look like this before, cold and dangerous. Margaret didn't flinch. I came to meet the woman you hired to replace my daughter. Elena isn't replacing anyone. She's helping me honor Rebecca's memory. Rebecca would be horrified by this. Margaret's voice broke, and for the first time, Elena saw real grief in her eyes. She'd be horrified that you're bringing a child into the world without her. That you're hiring some stranger to carry her baby. Rebecca wanted this child, Dominic said, his voice softer now. We created those embryos together. We talked about names, about nursery colors, about the kind of parents we wanted to be. I'm not trying to replace her. I'm trying to keep my promise to her. Your promise to her died when she did. Margaret's composure cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face. Let my daughter rest in peace, Dominic. Let this embryo go. Move on with your life. Find someone new. Have children naturally. But don't do this. Don't bring a child into the world who will never know its mother. The baby will know Rebecca, Dominic said. I'll make sure of it. I'll tell her everything about the amazing woman her mother was. Her? Margaret's eyes widened. You know it's a girl? Dominic glanced at Elena, and she saw the truth in his eyes. They'd found out at the last ultrasound. A girl. They'd agreed not to tell anyone yet, but the secret had slipped out in his anger. Yes, Dominic said. It's a girl. Margaret pressed her hand to her mouth, fresh tears flowing. Rebecca always wanted a daughter. She'd already picked out a name. Lily Rose, after her grandmother. I remember, Dominic said quietly. That's what we'll call her. For a moment, Margaret looked like she might soften. But then her expression hardened again. You're making a mistake, Dominic. And I won't let you do this without a fight. My lawyers will be in court next week. We'll see what a judge has to say about this arrangement. She turned and walked back to her car, leaving Elena and Dominic standing in the garden. After Margaret's car disappeared down the driveway, Elena sank onto the garden bench, her legs shaking. The baby was kicking hard now, responding to Elena's stress. Dominic sat beside her. I'm sorry. I should have warned you she might come here. She called me a vessel, Elena whispered. An incubator. You're not. You're so much more than that. Elena looked at him, tears burning in her eyes. Am I? Because she's right, Dominic. That's what the contract says. I'm carrying your baby for money. When this is over, I'll leave and you'll raise Lily with whoever comes into your life next. I'm temporary. Disposable. Don't say that. Dominic took her hand. You're not disposable. You're giving my daughter life. You're making it possible for me to keep my promise to Rebecca. How could you ever be disposable? Because that's how surrogacy works, Elena said. I'm not Lily's mother. I'm not even part of her family. I'm just the woman who carried her. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. What if you didn't have to leave? What if we changed the arrangement? Elena's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I mean, what if you stayed involved? Not as a surrogate, but as someone important in Lily's life. We could figure out what that looks like. We could. We could what? Elena asked, hardly daring to hope. Pretend to be a family? Co-parent a child when I have no legal rights? Confuse Lily about who I am and what role I play. We could tell her the truth. Which truth? That her father hired me to have her? That I did this for money? That I'm not really her mother even though I carried her for 9 months? Elena stood up, pulling her hand from his. Margaret is right about one thing. This is complicated. Messy. And I don't know how to navigate it. She walked back to the cottage, her vision blurred with tears. Behind her, she heard Dominic call her name, but she didn't turn around. She couldn't. Because if she looked at him, she might say something she couldn't take back. That night, Elena's mother called from Johns Hopkins. The treatment was working. The tumors were shrinking. Rose would need ongoing care, but the doctors were optimistic about her long-term survival. You saved my life, baby, Rose said, her voice strong for the first time in months. I don't know how you got the money, but you saved my life. Elena touched her stomach, feeling Lily kick. I'm glad, Mom. I love you. After they hung up, Elena sat in the dark cottage, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on her. She'd saved her mother. That had been the goal. That had been the point of all of this. But somewhere along the way she'd lost herself. She'd fallen in love with a man she couldn't have. She'd fallen in love with a baby she'd have to give away. She'd created a life that would disappear the moment Lily was born. Margaret's words echoed in her mind. You're just the vessel. An incubator. When this is over you'll be discarded. Elena lay down on the bed and cried until she had no tears left. The next few weeks passed in a strange tension. Elena and Dominic maintained a polite distance, speaking only about medical appointments and practical matters. But the warmth that had grown between them didn't disappear. It lingered in the air like electricity before a storm. At 26 weeks pregnant, Elena's mother came to visit. Rose had finished her first round of treatment at Johns Hopkins and was home recovering. She'd gained back some weight, and though she still looked fragile, there was color in her cheeks again. Mrs. Patterson had prepared a special lunch on the patio. Elena sat beside her mother, one hand resting on her swollen belly. Lily was moving almost constantly now, little kicks and rolls that made Elena's whole stomach shift. Look at you, Rose said, touching Elena's face gently. You're glowing. That's just pregnancy hormones, Mom. No, it's more than that. Rose glanced toward the main house, where Dominic was visible through the windows, working on his laptop. Tell me about him. The father. Elena had explained the surrogacy arrangement to her mother weeks ago, but she'd been careful to keep the details vague. His name is Dominic Mitchell. His wife died 2 years ago. This was her embryo. And he's treating you well? Very well. He's kind. Respectful. He makes sure I have everything I need. Rose studied her daughter's face. You have feelings for him. It wasn't a question. Elena felt her cheeks flush. It's complicated, Mom. Love usually is. It's not love, Elena said quickly. It can't be. I'm his surrogate. I'm carrying his late wife's baby. When this is over, I'll leave and go back to my life. Is that what you want? Elena looked down at her hands. What I want doesn't matter. I signed a contract. I have a role to play. Rose reached over and squeezed Elena's hand. You're my daughter and you're the strongest person I know. But sometimes being strong means admitting when your heart is involved. Don't ignore what you feel just because it's complicated. Before Elena could respond, Dominic came out onto the patio. He smiled at Rose. Mrs. Rivera, it's good to see you looking so well. Call me Rose, please. And thank you for taking such good care of my daughter. It's my pleasure. Dominic sat down across from them. Elena makes it easy. They had lunch together, the conversation flowing easily. Rose told stories about Elena as a child, about her stubborn determination and her tender heart. Dominic laughed at the story about 5-year-old Elena organizing a neighborhood toy drive, collecting donations for children in the hospital. She's always been a helper, Rose said, looking at her daughter with pride. Always thinking about others before herself. After lunch, Rose pulled Elena aside. He's in love with you. Mom, no. He's grateful. That's all. Elena, I'm your mother. I know love when I see it. That man looks at you like you hung the moon. Rose's expression grew serious. But I also see his pain. He's still grieving his wife. You need to be careful. Grief can look like love sometimes, and when it clears, you might find yourself alone. Elena hugged her mother, feeling the truth of her words settle in her chest like a stone. That night, Margaret's lawyers filed new court documents. Dominic's lawyer called to explain. Margaret was requesting an emergency hearing. She wanted to establish grandparents' rights and gain partial custody of the baby before birth. Can she do that? Elena asked. They were sitting in Dominic's study, legal documents spread across the desk. She can try, Dominic said. My lawyer says it's a long shot. I'm the biological father, and you willingly agreed to be the surrogate. But Margaret has resources and she's willing to fight dirty. What does fighting dirty mean? Dominic's jaw tightened. Her lawyers are going to argue that our relationship has become inappropriate. That we've crossed boundaries that make you unfit to complete the surrogacy. Elena felt cold all over. What boundaries? The dinners? The time we spend together? The fact that you're living here? Dominic stood and walked to the window. They're going to paint a picture of an emotionally unstable widow who's using you to replace his dead wife. Is that what you're doing? Elena asked quietly. Dominic turned to face her, his eyes fierce. No. God, no. You're not a replacement for Rebecca. You're... He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. You're you, Elena. You're smart and kind and brave. You make me laugh. You make me think about the future instead of dwelling in the past. You're not replacing anyone. You're becoming someone important to me. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. Dominic, we can't. The contract. Forget the contract. He crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. I know the timing is terrible. I know this is complicated. But Elena, I can't pretend anymore. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. You're grieving, Elena said even as her heart soared. You're lonely. You're grateful that I'm carrying your baby. But that's not the same as love. How do you know? Because when Lily is born, when I'm not pregnant anymore, when we're not living in this bubble, everything will change. You'll realize that what you felt was gratitude, not love. And I'll be left with a broken heart and no baby to show for it. What if you're wrong? Dominic asked. What if what I feel is real? Elena pulled her hands from his and stood up, putting distance between them. Then we wait. We wait until after Lily is born. We wait until the contract is fulfilled. We wait until we can see clearly without the pregnancy confusing everything. And if I still feel the same way after Lily is born? Then we'll figure it out. Elena touched her stomach, feeling Lily kick against her palm. But right now, I need to focus on keeping her healthy. And you need to focus on fighting Margaret in court. We can't afford to give her ammunition against us. Dominic nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize, Elena said softly. Just respect the boundaries. But that night, lying alone in the cottage, Elena admitted the truth to herself. She was in love with Dominic Mitchell. Completely, terrifyingly in love. And no matter how much she tried to protect herself, she was going to get hurt. Because when Lily was born, when the contract ended, when Elena had to walk away, it was going to break her heart into a million pieces. What would you do if you fell in love with someone you could never have? Would you protect your heart or take the risk? Let us know in the comments and make sure you're subscribed because Elena's journey is about to get even more complicated. At 30 weeks pregnant, Elena could barely see her feet anymore. Lily was getting bigger, pressing against Elena's ribs and bladder with what felt like constant force. Sleep was difficult. Comfort was a distant memory. But Elena had never felt more alive. The court hearing was scheduled for the following week. Dominic's lawyers were confident, but the stress was taking its toll. Dominic looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders tight with tension. Elena tried to maintain distance like they'd agreed. But it was getting harder. Every time Lily kicked, Elena wanted to tell Dominic. Every time she had a craving or felt tired or had a strange symptom, she wanted to share it with him. He'd become her person, the one she turned to first. One evening, Elena was sitting in the garden when she felt a particularly strong kick. She gasped and pressed her hand against the spot. A moment later, another kick, then another. Lily was having what Elena had started calling a dance party. Is she moving? Dominic's voice came from behind her. He'd been giving her space, but he looked at her stomach with such longing that Elena's heart ached. Come feel, Elena said before she could stop herself. Dominic crossed the garden and knelt beside her chair. Elena took his hand and placed it on her stomach where Lily was kicking hardest. His eyes widened. She's really going, he said, his voice filled with wonder. She does this every evening around this time. I think she's going to be a night owl like her dad. They sat like that for several minutes, Dominic's hand on Elena's stomach, feeling his daughter move and kick. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. Birds sang in the trees. It was perfect and painful all at once. I need to tell you something, Elena said. She couldn't hold it in anymore. The words had been building inside her for weeks, pressing against her chest until she thought she might burst. "Okay," Dominic said, his hand still resting on her stomach. "I love you." The words came out in a rush. "I know I'm not supposed to. I know it's against the contract and inappropriate and terrible timing. I know you're still grieving Rebecca and I'm just the surrogate and this is probably just pregnancy hormones or proximity or gratitude. But I love you, Dominic. I love the way you talk about Rebecca, keeping her memory alive instead of trying to erase her. I love how you make terrible jokes when you're nervous. I love how you care about Mrs. Patterson and ask about her grandchildren. I love the way you look at your daughter on the ultrasound screen like she's already the most important thing in your world. I love you and I needed to say it out loud even if it changes nothing." Dominic stared at her, his eyes wide, his mouth slightly open. Elena felt tears stream down her face. She'd said it. She'd crossed the line they'd drawn. "Elena," Dominic whispered. "I love you too. Don't say that just because I said it first. Don't say it if you don't mean it." "I mean it." Dominic moved closer, his hand cupping her face gently. "I've been falling in love with you for months. Every dinner we shared, every conversation, every moment I watched you care for my daughter growing inside you. I love you, Elena Rivera. Not because you're carrying my baby. Not because I'm lonely or grieving or confused. I love you because you're you." "But Rebecca," Elena said. "You loved her so much." "I did love her. I still do. She was my wife and losing her broke something inside me." Dominic's thumb brushed away Elena's tears. "But loving you doesn't erase that. Love isn't finite. My heart didn't die with Rebecca. It just needed time to heal. And you helped it heal, Elena. You brought light back into my life." "I'm so scared," Elena admitted. "I'm scared this is a mistake. I'm scared you'll change your mind after Lily is born. I'm scared Margaret is right and I'm just the vessel and when this is over, you'll realize you don't need me anymore." "I will always need you," Dominic said firmly. "Always." He leaned forward and Elena met him halfway. Their lips touched, gentle at first, then deeper. Elena felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. This kiss was different from anything she'd ever experienced. It was full of hope and fear and love and promise. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "We should wait," he said. "Like you said before. We should wait until after Lily is born, until the contract is fulfilled, until we can do this properly." "But we love each other," Elena said. "We do. Which is why we need to do this right. Margaret's lawyers are looking for any excuse to claim our relationship is inappropriate. If we start dating now, they'll use it against us in court. We need to wait. Just a few more weeks. Until Lily is safely here. Until the custody issue is resolved. Then we can be together properly." Elena knew he was right. But every cell in her body wanted to disagree. She wanted to be with him now. She wanted to fall asleep beside him, wake up next to him, build a life with him. "Okay," she said. "We wait." But that night, as Elena lay in bed with her hand on her stomach, she felt something shift. The decision was made. The truth was spoken. They loved each other. Now they just had to survive long enough to be together. Over the next week, they maintained their careful distance in public. But the air between them crackled with unspoken words and unrealized promises. Mrs. Patterson noticed. She started smiling at them knowingly, humming as she worked. "He's a good man," Mrs. Patterson told Elena one afternoon while bringing her lunch. "And you're good for him. I haven't seen him this happy since Rebecca was alive." "Do you think that's wrong?" Elena asked. "For him to be happy? No, honey. I think it's exactly what Rebecca would have wanted. She loved him too much to want him to spend his life alone." The day before the court hearing, Dominic's lawyer came to the house for a final preparation meeting. Her name was Patricia Vance, a sharp woman in her 50s with gray hair and piercing blue eyes. "Margaret's lawyers are going to argue that your relationship has crossed professional boundaries," Patricia said, looking between Dominic and Elena. "They'll claim that Elena is no longer a neutral surrogate but has developed an emotional attachment to the baby that could complicate custody." "I am emotionally attached," Elena said. "How could I not be? I've been carrying her for 7 months." "That's normal," Patricia said. "And actually works in our favor. You're not trying to claim parental rights. You understand your role. You're planning to fulfill the contract and step away. That shows maturity and respect for the agreement." "What about after?" Dominic asked. "After Lily is born and the custody issue is resolved. Can Elena stay involved in her life?" Patricia considered this. "Legally, that's up to you as the father. The surrogacy contract terminates upon birth. What happens after that is your decision, not the court's. But I'd recommend waiting until after the judge rules on Margaret's petition before making any plans. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, her fate would be decided by a judge who didn't know her, didn't understand what she'd sacrificed, didn't see that she was more than just a surrogate. At 2 a.m. there was a knock on the cottage door. Elena opened it to find Dominic standing there in sweatpants and a green t-shirt, his hair messy, his eyes red. "I can't sleep," he said. "Can I come in?" Elena stepped aside. They sat on the couch, several feet apart, careful not to touch. "I keep thinking about tomorrow," Dominic said. "What if we lose? What if Margaret wins and gets custody rights?" "She won't," Elena said with more confidence than she felt. "You're Lily's father. The law is on your side. But what if it isn't? What if the judge decides that a child needs a mother, and Margaret is the closest thing to that? Then we appeal. We fight. We don't give up." Elena moved closer, taking his hand. "We've come too far to give up now." Dominic squeezed her hand. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens tomorrow, you won't disappear. Promise me you'll stay in Lily's life. In my life." "I promise," Elena whispered. They fell asleep like that, sitting on the couch, holding hands, trying to borrow strength from each other for the battle ahead. The courtroom was cold and sterile, with fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and unforgiving. Elena sat beside Dominic at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded over her swollen stomach. Lily was moving, responding to Elena's anxiety with kicks and rolls. Margaret sat across the aisle with her lawyers. She wore black, her expression carefully neutral, but Elena could see the determination in her eyes. This woman would fight to the end. Judge Carol Henderson entered, and everyone stood. She was a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and an air of no-nonsense authority. Elena felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe this judge would understand. Margaret's lawyer went first. His name was Ronald Bennett, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a voice that dripped with moral superiority. "Your Honor, my client Margaret Caldwell is here today fighting for her grandchild's well-being. 2 years ago, her daughter Rebecca Mitchell died tragically in a car accident. Before her death, Rebecca and her husband Dominic created several embryos through IVF. Mrs. Caldwell believes, and we strongly argue, that bringing a child into the world without its mother is not in that child's best interest." He went on for 20 minutes, painting Dominic as emotionally unstable, driven by grief rather than logic. He described the surrogacy as unnatural, the arrangement as suspicious. He suggested that Dominic's relationship with Elena had crossed appropriate boundaries. The surrogate, Elena Rivera, has been living on Mr. Mitchell's property for months. They have daily contact. Our investigation suggests that their relationship has become personal rather than professional. This raises serious questions about Ms. Rivera's objectivity and Mr. Mitchell's judgment. Elena felt her cheeks burn. They'd been so careful. How could anyone suggest their relationship was inappropriate? When Bennett finished, Patricia Vance stood. She was calm, confident, wearing a maroon suit that seemed to give her power. "Your Honor, let's be clear about what's actually happening here. Dominic Mitchell is the biological father of this child. He and his late wife Rebecca created embryos together with the intention of having a family. When Rebecca died, that dream didn't die with her. Mr. Mitchell has every legal right to use those embryos to have a child." Patricia walked over to Elena. Elena Rivera is a 28-year-old woman who agreed to be a gestational surrogate to help her dying mother receive life-saving treatment. She has fulfilled her contract honorably. She has taken excellent care of herself and the baby. She has never once tried to claim parental rights. The suggestion that her relationship with Mr. Mitchell is somehow inappropriate is offensive and baseless. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, reviewing documents. Then she asked to speak with Elena and Dominic separately. Elena went first. She sat in the witness chair, her hand resting on her stomach, feeling Lily kick against her palm. "Ms. Rivera," Judge Henderson said gently, "tell me in your own words why you agreed to be a surrogate." Elena took a deep breath. "My mother has stage 4 cancer. The only treatment that could save her costs $250,000. I had no way to get that money. When Mr. Mitchell's lawyer approached me with this opportunity, it felt like a miracle. I could save my mother's life by helping someone else create life." "And how has the experience been for you?" "Difficult. Beautiful. Complicated." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "I won't lie and say it's been easy. Carrying a baby you know you'll have to give away is harder than I imagined. But I don't regret it. Lily is a gift. And helping Mr. Mitchell honor his wife's memory has been an honor. Have you developed feelings for the baby? Yes. How could I not? She's inside me. I feel her move. I hear her heartbeat at every appointment. I've been talking to her, singing to her, dreaming about who she'll become. But I understand that she's not mine. She's Rebecca and Dominic's daughter. My job is to bring her safely into the world and then step back. And Mr. Mitchell? Have you developed feelings for him? Elena hesitated. Lying to a judge was perjury. But telling the truth could destroy everything. She looked across the courtroom at Dominic. He gave her a small nod as if to say it's okay. Yes, Elena said quietly. I have feelings for Dominic. But we haven't acted on them. We've maintained appropriate boundaries. We're waiting until after Lily is born and the contract is fulfilled to explore what that might mean. Judge Henderson studied her for a long moment. Thank you for your honesty, Ms. Rivera. Then it was Dominic's turn. He answered the judge's questions calmly, explaining his love for Rebecca, his desire to honor her memory, his gratitude to Elena for making it possible. Do you have romantic feelings for Ms. Rivera? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. I do. I'm in love with her. Dominic's voice was strong, clear. But I want to be clear about something. I didn't hire Elena to replace Rebecca. I hired her to carry my daughter. What's developed between us happened naturally over time as we navigated this journey together. Elena is an extraordinary woman, and I would be honored to have her in my life and my daughter's life permanently. Margaret stood up suddenly. This is exactly what I was afraid of. He's using my grandchild to build a new family with this woman. Mrs. Caldwell, please sit down, Judge Henderson said firmly. I'll give you a chance to speak. When Margaret took the stand, she was emotional but controlled. My daughter was the light of my life. When she died, a part of me died too. I know Dominic loved her. But bringing a child into the world to fill that void is wrong. That baby will never know her mother. She'll grow up with questions and grief and emptiness. I believe it would be more merciful to let her rest. But she's not resting, Dominic said, standing up despite Patricia's hand on his arm. She's growing. She's alive. Lily is alive and she deserves to be born. She deserves to be loved. And yes, she won't know Rebecca physically, but I will tell her every day about the amazing woman her mother was. I will make sure Rebecca's memory lives on through our daughter. The judge called a recess. Elena went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on her face. Her whole body was shaking. What if they lost? What if the judge ruled in Margaret's favor? When they reconvened, Judge Henderson took a long time reviewing her notes. Finally she spoke. This is a difficult case. I understand Mrs. Caldwell's concerns. Losing a child is unimaginable, and I can see why she feels protective of her daughter's embryo. However, the law is clear. Mr. Mitchell is the biological father. He and his late wife created these embryos together with the intention of having a child. The surrogacy contract is legal and binding. Ms. Rivera has fulfilled her obligations admirably. I find no evidence of impropriety or coercion. Margaret's face crumpled. Elena felt tears stream down her own cheeks. That said, the judge continued, I believe Mrs. Caldwell should have a relationship with her grandchild. I'm granting Mr. Mitchell full custody upon the child's birth. However, I'm also granting Mrs. Caldwell reasonable visitation rights. Your family and this child will benefit from knowing her grandmother. It was over. They'd won. Elena felt Dominic's hand find hers under the table and squeeze tight. But the relief was short-lived. As they left the courthouse, Elena felt a sudden, sharp pain in her abdomen. She gasped and stumbled. Dominic caught her. Elena? What's wrong? I don't know. Sharp pain. Another contraction hit, stronger this time. Elena doubled over, clutching her stomach. We need to get her to a hospital, Patricia said. Now. Dominic swept Elena into his arms and ran to the car. As they sped through traffic, sirens wailing from the ambulance they'd called, Elena felt another contraction. They were coming fast now, too fast. It's too early, she whispered. Lily's not ready. It's too early. You're going to be fine, Dominic said, but his voice was shaking. Both of you are going to be fine. At the hospital, doctors rushed Elena into an examination room. Dr. Park was called in from her office across town. Tests were run. Monitors were attached. Severe preeclampsia, Dr. Park said grimly. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. The baby is showing signs of distress. We need to deliver now. But I'm only 31 weeks, Elena said. She's not ready. If we don't deliver, you could have a stroke. The baby could die. I'm sorry, Elena, but we're out of time. Everything happened so fast. Elena was prepped for an emergency C-section. Dominic was given scrubs. Margaret appeared in the hallway, her face pale with fear. As they wheeled Elena toward the operating room, she grabbed Dominic's hand. Promise me you'll take care of her. Promise me Lily will be okay. I promise, Dominic said, tears streaming down his face. But you're going to be okay too. You have to be okay, Elena. I love you. I can't lose you. I love you too, Elena whispered. Then the world went dark. Elena woke to the sound of beeping monitors and hushed voices. Her mouth was dry, her body heavy, her stomach tender and sore. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was or what had happened. Then it all came rushing back. The court hearing. The pain. The hospital. The emergency C-section. Lily, Elena whispered, her voice hoarse. Where's Lily? She's in the NICU, honey. Rose's face appeared above her, worn with worry but smiling. She's small but fighting. The doctors say she's strong. Elena tried to sit up, but pain shot through her abdomen. I need to see her. I need to know she's okay. Rest first, Rose said. You've been through major surgery. You lost a lot of blood. The doctors were worried. Where's Dominic? With the baby. He hasn't left the NICU since she was born. Rose squeezed Elena's hand. He's been beside himself with worry about both of you. Over the next few hours, nurses came and went, checking Elena's vitals, adjusting her medication. Finally, Dr. Park came in with a wheelchair. Ready to meet your daughter? She asked with a gentle smile. She's not my daughter, Elena said automatically. I'm just the surrogate. Dr. Park gave her a long look. Elena, you carried that baby for 7 months. You almost died bringing her into the world. She's your daughter too in all the ways that matter. They wheeled Elena down to the NICU. The room was quiet, filled with the soft sounds of monitors and ventilators. Premature babies lay in incubators, tiny and fragile, fighting for life. Dominic stood beside one of the incubators, his hand pressed against the glass. He looked exhausted, wearing the same clothes from the courthouse, his hair a mess, dark circles under his eyes. Elena, he breathed when he saw her. He crossed the room and knelt beside her wheelchair, taking her hands. Thank God. I was so scared. They said you lost a lot of blood. They said. I'm okay, Elena said. I'm okay. Where is she? Where's Lily? Dominic stood and wheeled Elena to the incubator. Inside lay the smallest baby Elena had ever seen. Lily weighed just 3 pounds, her skin almost translucent, wires and tubes attached to her tiny body. But even through all the medical equipment, Elena could see her. Really see her. She had Rebecca's nose. Dominic's chin. A shock of dark hair. Perfect little fingers that curled and uncurled. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She's beautiful, Elena whispered. She's a fighter, Dominic said. Just like her mother. Both of her mothers. Elena looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Can I touch her? A nurse came over and opened the incubator doors. Just gentle touches. We don't want to overstimulate her. Elena reached in and placed her finger in Lily's palm. The baby's tiny hand closed around it with surprising strength. Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. This was love. Pure, overwhelming, complicated love. Hi, Lily, Elena whispered. It's me. I know I'm not your mommy, but I carried you for all these months. I felt every kick, every hiccup, every movement. You're so strong, little girl. Keep fighting, okay? Your daddy loves you so much. And your mommy, Rebecca, she loved you before you were even born. You're going to be okay. She stayed like that for a long time, her finger held tight in Lily's tiny hand, until the nurses said she needed to rest. Back in her room, Elena fell into an exhausted sleep. She dreamed of babies and court hearings and love that was too complicated to define. When she woke, Margaret was sitting in the chair beside her bed. I'm sorry, Margaret said before Elena could speak. I'm sorry for everything I said. For how I treated you. For calling you a vessel. For fighting this so hard. Elena pushed herself up, wincing at the pain. Mrs. Caldwell. Please call me Margaret. The older woman's face was wet with tears. I saw you with Lily. I saw the way you looked at her. The way she held your finger. You love her. I do, Elena admitted. I know I'm not supposed to. I know she's not mine. But I love her. She is yours, Margaret said. Not legally, maybe. Not biologically. But you grew her in your body. You almost died bringing her into this world. How could she not be yours? But Rebecca? Rebecca would be grateful to you. Margaret took Elena's hand. My daughter wanted a child more than anything. She would be so happy that Lily is here, that she's fighting, that she has people who love her. You Dominic me. We're her family now. All of us. I don't understand, Elena said. At the courthouse you said. I was wrong. I was so consumed by grief that I couldn't see clearly. But sitting in that NICU watching my granddaughter fight for life, watching you and Dominic with her, I realized something. Love doesn't die. It transforms. It grows. Rebecca's love created Lily. Your love brought her into the world. Dominic's love will raise her. And my love will be there too. We're all part of this story. Margaret stood to leave, but Elena stopped her. Will you tell me about Rebecca? I want to know who she was. I want to be able to tell Lily about her mother. Margaret smiled through her tears. I'd like that very much. Over the next week, Elena recovered in the hospital while Lily grew stronger in the NICU. Every day, Elena visited her daughter, sitting beside the incubator, talking to her, singing to her, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. Dominic was there too, every moment he could spare. They didn't talk much about the future. They were too focused on the present, on making sure Lily survived. Margaret came every afternoon. She brought photo albums filled with pictures of Rebecca. She told stories about Rebecca's childhood, her love of music, her terrible cooking, her kind heart. Elena listened to every word, committing it all to memory. Rose visited too, bringing news from the outside world. Her cancer was in remission. The experimental treatment had worked. She would need ongoing monitoring, but the doctors were optimistic. You saved my life, Rose told Elena. And now you've brought new life into the world. You're a miracle worker, baby. On Elena's 8th day in the hospital, Dr. Park came to check on her. You're healing well. I think we can discharge you tomorrow. But Lily? Lily will be in the NICU for at least another month. Maybe 2. She needs to gain weight and get stronger before she can go home. But you can visit her every day. Elena nodded, but her heart felt heavy. Leaving the hospital meant facing reality. The contract was fulfilled. Lily was born. The surrogacy was complete. What happened now? That night, Dominic came to her room. He looked better, having finally gone home to shower and change. He wore jeans and a blue shirt, and he carried a small box. I have something for you, he said, sitting on the edge of her bed. Elena opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with 3 charms: a heart, a flower, and a tiny baby shoe. The heart is for you, Dominic explained. The flower is for Rebecca. And the baby shoe is for Lily. Our 3 girls. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Dominic, I don't know what happens now. The contract says. The contract is over, Dominic said firmly. This isn't about contracts anymore. This is about family. Elena, I love you. I'm in love with you. And I want you in my life. In Lily's life. Not as a surrogate. As a partner. As a mother. As my future. But what would we tell people? What would we tell Lily when she's old enough to ask? We'll tell her the truth. That her mother Rebecca loved her before she was born. That you carried her and brought her into the world with so much courage and love. That I'm her father and I love her more than anything. And that our family is unconventional but full of love. Elena touched the bracelet, feeling the weight of the charms. Are you sure? Are you really sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Elena pulled him close and kissed him, tasting salt from both their tears. I love you, she whispered. I love you and Lily so much. Then stay, Dominic said. Stay with us. Build a life with us. Be Lily's mother in every way that matters. Yes, Elena said. Yes to all of it. 3 months later, Elena stood in the nursery of Dominic's house, rocking Lily in her arms. The baby had finally been discharged from the hospital 2 weeks ago, weighing a healthy 5 pounds. She was still tiny, but she was strong. So strong. You're getting so big, Elena whispered, touching Lily's soft cheek. Before I know it, you'll be crawling and walking and talking. You'll grow up so fast. Lily made a small cooing sound and grabbed Elena's finger with her tiny hand. It was her favorite thing to do, holding on tight like she never wanted to let go. The nursery was beautiful. They'd painted the walls a soft yellow and filled the room with books and toys and photos. On one wall hung a large portrait of Rebecca, smiling and radiant. Elena had insisted on it. Rebecca was part of this story. She would always be part of this story. She looks like her, Margaret said from the doorway. She visited often now, having formed an unlikely friendship with Elena. She has Rebecca's eyes. She has Dominic's stubbornness, Elena said with a laugh. This girl knows what she wants. Margaret came into the room and sat in the rocking chair beside Elena. I owe you an apology. You've already apologized. Many times. I know, but I need to say it again. I was so wrong about you, Elena. You're not just a surrogate. You're Lily's mother. You're the woman who brought her into this world and loved her before she took her first breath. I'm grateful for you. More grateful than I can say. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Margaret. That means everything. Later that afternoon, Rose came over for lunch. She looked healthy now, her hair growing back in soft silver curls, color in her cheeks. The experimental treatment had saved her life, and she was making the most of every day. Let me hold my grandbaby, Rose said, reaching for Lily. Elena handed her over carefully. Rose settled into the couch, cradling Lily against her chest. Hello, beautiful girl. You're getting so big. Elena sat beside her mother, watching Lily's eyes drift closed as Rose rocked her gently. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Staying here with Dominic? Raising Lily? Rose looked at her daughter with so much love it made Elena's chest ache. Baby, I think you're doing exactly what your heart tells you to do. You love Dominic. You love Lily. You've built a family together. How could that be wrong? But Rebecca? Rebecca is at peace. And if she could see you now, I think she'd be grateful. Grateful that you carried her daughter with such love. Grateful that you're raising her with Dominic. Grateful that Lily has a mother who loves her so much. That evening, after Rose and Margaret had left, Elena and Dominic put Lily to bed together. They stood over her crib, watching her sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. I have something for you, Dominic said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Elena's heart skipped a beat. Dominic. He opened the box to reveal a simple but beautiful ring with a single diamond. Elena Rivera, I know this has been the strangest journey. I know we did everything backwards. But I love you more than I thought I could ever love anyone again. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and Lily's mother? Will you build a life with us? Elena looked at the ring, then at Lily sleeping peacefully, then at Dominic's hopeful face. A year ago, she'd been sitting in a hospital corridor watching her mother die. She'd been drowning in debt, in fear, in hopelessness. Now she stood in a nursery with a man she loved and a baby she'd carried into the world. Now she had a family. Yes, Elena said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her. It was a kiss full of promise, full of hope, full of the future they would build together. 6 months later, they had a small wedding in the garden where they'd shared so many dinners and conversations. Rose walked Elena down the aisle. Margaret held Lily, who wore a tiny white dress with a pink ribbon. Mrs. Patterson cried happy tears. The ceremony was simple. They exchanged vows under an arch covered in flowers. Dominic promised to love Elena for the rest of his life. Elena promised to love Dominic and Lily with all her heart. They included Rebecca in the ceremony, lighting a candle in her memory, acknowledging that she was part of their story. After the ceremony, Margaret approached Elena and Dominic with tears in her eyes. Thank you, she said. Thank you for giving me my granddaughter. Thank you for including me. Thank you for honoring Rebecca's memory. Your family, Elena said simply. You'll always be family. That night, after all the guests had gone home, after Lily was asleep in her crib, Elena and Dominic stood in the garden under the stars. Can you believe it? Elena asked. A year ago, I was a broke woman watching my mother die. Now I'm married to you. I'm Lily's mother. I have a family. It's been quite a journey, Dominic agreed, pulling her close. Do you ever regret it? The surrogacy? The way we met? Never. Not for 1 second. Dominic kissed her forehead. You gave me more than just my daughter. You gave me a reason to live again. You gave me love when I thought I'd never feel it again. You gave me hope. Elena rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I love you. I love you too. Always. Inside the house, Lily began to cry. They looked at each other and laughed. Duty calls, Elena said. Together they walked into the house and up to the nursery. Elena picked up Lily and began to rock her, singing softly. Dominic stood behind them, his arms wrapped around both of his girls. This was family. Complicated, unconventional, built on contracts and grief and hope. But it was real. It was love. And it was theirs. Elena never imagined that agreeing to be a surrogate would change her entire life. She entered the arrangement to save her mother, fulfilling a contract that seemed straightforward. But somewhere between ultrasounds and late-night conversations, between legal battles and emergency deliveries, she found something she never expected. A family. Dominic honored Rebecca's memory while opening his heart to new love. Margaret learned that family isn't always defined by blood or biology, but by the people who show up and fight for each other. And little Lily grew up knowing she was loved by many. Her mother Rebecca who wanted her, Elena who carried her, Dominic who raised her, and Margaret who treasured her. Sometimes the best families are the ones we build ourselves, piece by piece, heart by heart. And sometimes the greatest act of love is letting yourself be loved in return.